Good day. Welcome to this hybrid meeting of the Grant Subcommittee of the Policy and Resources Committee. I would remind all attendees that the meeting is being recorded and broadcast live on the Council's YouTube channel. I've agreed the attendance of some members remotely and would remind all remote attendees to mute their microphones when not speaking. For any members of the public watching, please note that all the committee reports, including details of specific recommendations, are available on the Council's website. Prior to commencement of the business today, as convener, I determined in relation to item 4 that in terms of Standing Order 25(1)(2), there has been a material change of circumstances within 6 months of consideration of report number 118/25 presented to the Grant Sub on the 25th of March, in that it is identified that the original small grants criteria, disbursement up to £5,000, is not sufficient for the type of bids that the third sector have been working on, and therefore it's appropriate for the issue to be reconsidered, and that's item 4. Okay, we'll move on to the meeting proper. Apologies and substitutions. We're all present, are we? All present, correct. Any declarations of interest or statements of transparency? Okay, I don't see any. Thank you. And the minute of the previous meeting, that relates to a meeting of the 25th of March. Is that approved? Agreed? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 4, which is the Whole Family Wellbeing Funding Project. And is that Rebecca McNeill who's going to present on that one? Thank you. Over to you, Rebecca.
Thank you. This report recommends that committee approves a change to the previously agreed grants amount to be administered by VAA in respect of the Whole Family Wellbeing Fund. Earlier this year, committee approved a small grant fund of £100,000 with a maximum application amount of £5,000. We are seeking an increase of this from £5,000 to £25,000 on the basis of feedback from the third sector. Since we were last at committee, Angus Synergy Spark was created, which is a collaborative thinking space led by VAA and facilitated by external consultants in control. The group has brought together 17 third sector agencies who have received support to develop robust collaborative proposals, ensure equity and access to funding opportunities, strengthen monitoring and evaluation approaches, and align ideas with the wider system needs of Angus families. Throughout the workshops and one-to-one support, organisations have worked on the assumption that a maximum small grant allocation would be around the region of £25,000. This threshold enables the delivery of strategic one-off interventions that are more sustainable, avoidance of fragmented, piecemeal activities, more efficient planning and stronger outcomes for families, and reduced admin burden for small charities applying for multiple smaller grants. Feedback gathered during workshops shows that smaller charities particularly benefit from this approach, as it allows them to focus on delivery rather than repeat funding cycles. Importantly, increasing the upper limit does not reduce the number of organisations supported or requiring additional funds. As outlined within the reports, the Whole Family Wellbeing Fund is money from the Scottish Government to be distributed via our community planning partnerships to support transformational change and provide early help to families. It's therefore paramount that our appointed TSI, third sector interface, plays a key role if we are to achieve sustainable solutions. To support a fundamental shift in systems, this work will grow and learn as we move through the journey. There is therefore a requirement to be flexible and adaptive and responsive. Having worked closely with VAA on this, I'm excited with the feedback I've received regarding the collaborative approaches being worked on, and I am looking forward to receiving applications should today's proposal be agreed. Thank you, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Meehan.
Thank you, convener. While I really don't have any major issue with the change, I'm concerned that we're talking about grants of up to 25,000. Do you envisage that there will be a reduction then in the number of organisations, given that there's a larger sum being offered? So, for instance, if 4 want 25,000, that's the money gone. Whereas before there would be 20 if it was 5,000. Yeah.
Sorry. I suppose that's a risk. We don't know what applications are going to come in, but what we do have is a panel that will be seeing everything that does come in, and we will be able to assess the appetite that is there. The whole family wellbeing funding that we have has been approved up until 2027, so we know that we've got money there should there be a need in the community to grow even further. So I'm not concerned that we wouldn't have enough money to support transformational change should the applications be appropriate. So we could come back to that in future.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, I do. It says, I think, in the report, and I know this has been determined, but it says about a material change outlined in 5.1. When I read 5.1, there isn't actually any material change mentioned in 5.1. So I'm not sure whether that's actually somewhere else. Perhaps you could let me know.
I think what we said that a lot of the grants or the applications that were made were for more than £5,000. That was my understanding, was the material consideration. That was the change effectively from when we met in March. I wanted to clarify, how much money we're actually talking about here. Is there £100,000 to distribute? Is my reading of that correct?
So at this point, we receive funding from Whole Family Wellbeing in the region of about 647,000 per year.
Okay, yeah.
We have ring-fenced 100,000 for small grants, right. 200,000 for large grants, and then there's other monies that we can distribute accordingly, as and when required.
So the grants of £5,000 that we previously agreed was taken out of that 100,000. And the grants of up to 25,000, is that also going to be taken out of the 100,000? So if we gave away 4 grants of 25,000, that would be all of that used up. But what you're arguing is that 5,000 is too little, and you want more flexibility. Can we also clarify when we distribute the grants? I mean, who is involved in making that decision?
So in terms of both funding streams, so there's the small grants and the large grants, there will be a panel of people on that, which will contain local authority reps on both panels. There will be reps from VAA, and we're also looking at ensuring we've got lived experience as part of that panel to ensure that we've got that input.
So the panel does include council officers, yeah. Councillor Bell, I think you're trying to speak as well. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Rebecca, you've answered part of my question around the panel for the one that's branded the council element. But I guess organisations could apply to that fund as well for maybe 2 different streams of initiative. And are there going to be any other criteria applied to each of the strands, so that if something comes into, say, the smaller grant fund, but could equally be funded by the other one, even if it's under 50k, that could still be achieved, yeah?
Yeah, so the plan is that both funding streams will run at the same time, and we will have oversight of the whole stream. The work that's been undertaken by the collaborative group with the third sector is about looking at how they approach this collaboratively together, so it's not multiple independent applications. It could be 2 or 3 agencies coming together for an application about a transformational approach they want to work on. We're really clear that because of the nature of this fund and the need to be collaborative and transformational in our approach, we don't want to put barriers in the way. So if there is a need for an agency to apply to the small grants and the large grants, that wouldn't go against them. But what we would need to do is assess them against a set of criteria, which is the same for both.
Thanks, that's really helpful. So knowing that it's not a number of single organisations, that it's the collaborative element is really important. Having been the chair of a third sector organisation, I know how labour intensive applications are, and it really carries weight for me that this has come from the third sector organisations themselves. So if they're putting effort into doing a 5k bid it's going to be broadly similar as the work they're going to put into the 25k bids, and their data gathering will be broadly similar to evidence. It seems to me that it's not rocket science that a 25k investment is going to create a higher chance of transformation than smaller fiddly bids. Yeah, would that be a fair assessment? Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's exactly the feedback from that collaborative group. And just to kind of remind everyone that that group consists of 17 third sector agencies and has been facilitated by an independent organisation. So it's them that have brought back this feedback and saying, you know, whilst it's great, it's not enough if we wanted to do something really transformational.
I guess, I mean, the other thought occurs, is there a risk? I mean, what's the balance between applications we get and the amount of money we have? I mean, do we find that we run out of money towards the end of the year, and by increasing the amount of grant, is that going to be greater or not? I mean, you know, are there lots of applicants who are disappointed? That I guess is my question. And will this exacerbate the problem if it's bigger grants? I mean, how's that going to play out?
Thanks, Councillor Duff. I think the answer to a number of these questions is we're really not that sure, because this is a different way to fund children's services. So the whole Family Wellbeing Fund coming into local authorities to administer on behalf of the Community Planning Partnership is actually quite a different way. So we are feeling our way in this space a wee bit. Given that we are now stepping into year 3 of the fund, we've spent the first couple of years really understanding our strategic needs, where the gaps are in communities, and looking at developing the culture and the systems around this shared approach. The ambition of the whole family wellbeing is to move services out of the council into communities. And so in a lot of ways, we need to just find a starting point and evaluate it as we go. So given that we've looked at the funds that we have available, we've looked at the work we've got to date, given there are 17 third sector organisations, very few of those are funded directly from the council. So they bring a lot of money in themselves through grant funding applications, through umbrella organisations and what have you. And by being able to tap into this, it also then means they can access match funding as well. That will all be part of the ongoing evaluation. So there is a wee bit for us that we need to put a pin in an amount and start there. I think we did that. We perhaps we're a bit premature in bringing the report here because we're just so keen to get going that actually the third sector have come back and said we need more scope. It's not that we'll come in at the top at 25,000. We will assess the need and it's up to 25. So those are risks for sure. We might have a need to bring a report back here at some point that sets that out. I think for now we need to find a line in the sand.
Thank you, Convener. I was just listening to what you were saying there, Kirsty, and another report may have to come back. Now, if we make a decision today, we would be bound again by the 6-month rule, and we would have to bring it back again, and it would have to be decided on. However, my concern is that 17 organisations have been talked to. There's no details of who the 17 organisations are. There is no information really on what they've said. There's no numbers here, there's no data, there's nothing. So we've been asked to make a decision to increase the grant 5-fold, which is a fair increase. And I'm just not sure that the information is there for me to make a decision based on all the evidence available. I'm just being told that that is the case, that it's not enough without showing me why it's not enough.
Yeah, I guess we've had a clear recommendation from the officers involved that's they're giving us their view. It's not money that it's coming from Scottish Government. It's being funneled through VAA, but there's a number of other parties involved in determining who gets the money. It's not down to just VAA. So in fact, some of these people are council officers. So I think my feeling is we've got a certain degree of control here, and I think, I certainly would be moving we accept the recommendation of officers here, because in the absence of they're working in this area. They're giving us a recommendation, and certainly £5,000 grants are a relatively small amount, I would have thought, and I can see the need for that flexibility. What others' views are. Councillor Bell?
I was involved in the initial workshop around the wellbeing, the Family Wellbeing Fund, and there was a lot of representation there. It has been developed collaboratively. Appreciate I may be slightly more informed than others around the table, but this is absolutely the direction of travel that we need to be doing, working more collegiately in partnership across the different sectors. And because of my involvement and understanding of it so far, I have every confidence that this is the right way to go. So I'm happy to support this proposal.
Well, I'll propose that we accept the recommendations of officers here on this one. Here, second as Councillor Beattie.
I would suggest that we actually defer a decision on this item until additional information is provided on the 17 groups and the basis for this recommendation.
Are there any negative consequences to deferring this decision? What would be the consequences if we did defer it?
So the consequence would be a further delay in being able to implement, this. I don't know how that would schedule in before recess or after. So the risk around that is that we can't proceed to look at applications and administer the fund. So aside from that, there are no other consequences, I guess.
Is this a calendar year fund or a financial year fund? Is it from April to March?
So it was from April to March. However, we're
effectively,
getting
we originally agreed this in March the 25th. So we're 3 months, more or less 3 months down the line, and we're saying we need to change it. If we defer it again, we'll be, it'll be after the summer recess, I would think. So I would be uncomfortable about deferring it for that reason, I think.
So I'm comfortable dealing with it today because I have that understanding of how it's been progressed to date. I wonder if we agree to progress it today, that some more information could then be provided to the members around the agencies that have been involved to date. I know they're there. I know they've got long-standing relationships across local authorities and the health service. So I don't have any anxiety around that myself, but providing that information offline might be helpful.
Is that possible to do that? We're not breaching any confidentialities there.
So there are probably two ways we can do that, and that's not an issue, to provide a briefing, whether it's written or we can have a session. But the whole Family Wellbeing Fund is also delegated to the Angus Integrated Children's Services Partnerships, and there is representation on that partnership. So they have quarterly reports that come in where we can look at the ongoing evaluation, we can challenge some of that, and we can then make recommendations about what needs to happen next. So happy to take those two actions if that's suitable.
It would certainly be good if you could do that. So I'm happy to approve it today. I think from what we've heard, I don't have Councillor Bell's intimate knowledge of the area. I'm frankly going on the recommendations from officers. Beacon?
Could I request a short recess just to discuss that?
Well, I'm conscious we've a lot of business and we've got scrutiny and audit, which is, well, that's 2 o'clock. Okay, I mean, a 5-minute recess. Okay.
Could we pause the stream, please?
Okay, welcome back. We've had a 5-minute or so recess. I guess we were at the point where I think I was proposing that we accept the report as it is, and Councillor Meehan was proposing a delay or a deferment of the matter. I don't know whether the discussions at the recess have changed anyone's mind.
Yes, in part. We propose that we're happy to accept the recommendations with one change, that a report comes back in the first quarter of 2026, providing an update on how it's gone so far and whether any...
that would be doable.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. I think on that, with that alteration, we're agreed then, and we can approve the report. Okay, thanks for your time. Councillor.
I think thanks for that, and I would support that, but it might well time in with a broader report around the whole activity in this field. I think that might be quite helpful. Yeah.
Okay. We'll move on to item 5, Angus Place-Based Prosperity Fund proposal for distribution, and that's to be presented by Audrey Meehy, who is online. Over to you, Audrey.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, elected members. This paper seeks the relevant approvals and delegations for the final year of the 5-year Scottish Government Place-Based Fund. Section 4.7 in the report notes that the Place-Based Fund was paused last year, and in Angus we replaced that fund with the UK Share Prosperity Capital Seed Fund. But as noted in 5.1 of the report, we have been notified in writing from the Scottish Government that the fund will be distributed to all local authorities this year for a 1-year fund. However, the final decisions are still sitting with Scottish ministers, and we're awaiting that final notification of the grant award. In talking to Scottish officials last week, we expect notification of Angus's allocation in a few weeks' time. The fund stipulates that all monies will be required to be committed by March 2026. However, as a council, we can accrue that fund for a period of 6 months. With the tight timelines in place for a capital fund and the uncertainty in the moment on the funding allocation, we have tightened up the criteria this year to allow the support for projects that are redeveloping assets, and this is detailed in section 6.2 and 6.3 of the report. Since the initial expression of interest exercise was conducted in 2021, Vibrant Communities community development officers have been working with a range of groups throughout Angus, supporting with funding packages and community ownership support. And we've also informed our service leaders of the fund through the Angus Council Strategic and Project Group. And once we have that notification from the Scottish Government on the fund, we will go on to an invited application process. We also propose this year, as we did 2 years ago, that we merge the Place-Based Investment Fund with the monies already approved at the Policy Resource Committee on the 15th of May from the UK Share Prosperity Fund, which was £150,000 for the Capital Seed Grant and £75,000 revenue, into an Angus Place Prosperity Fund. This will allow £585,000 capital funding to support capital redevelopment projects and £75,000 for a feasibility fund, which will allow any future projects to be shovel ready for any future rounds of funding that come forward. Officers have the feasibility fund ready to launch, and a member's brief will be circulated on that, and the fund information will be circulated to all groups and through our corporate comms. The invited application process is also ready to go once we receive that grant award letter from Scottish Government, should this paper be approved today, and a small group of officers will assess those projects before coming back to a future grant subcommittee, hopefully in August, for final approval. So members are asked to note the changes with the timescale involved, the challenges with the timescale involved in this fund, agree the process for the distribution as noted in 6.2 and 6.3, agree the changes to the scoring criteria as noted in 6.4, Note that a further report will be brought back to the Grants Subcommittee for approval of the assessed projects, and also delegates authority to the Director of Finance to approve any necessary material changes or emergency funding just because of the nature of the fund and the timelines that we're working with. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. Any questions, Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Audrey. I'm just wondering if organisations like Angus Tourism Cooperative have been engaged to this point, and if they will be going forwards, because I think tourism and the infrastructure for that are really important gaps, I think, and in terms of place and well-being, I think it's really important that we do work in partnership with those organisations. Thanks.
Any other questions? I guess one from me. I mean, we have changed the scoring criteria a bit. That's one of the significant things in this paper. Is that right?
We have really just updated the scoring criteria due to the fact that we have narrowed down the criteria of the funds. You'll remember that this fund is a very, very broad criteria, and we've actually narrowed it down due to the timescales to support organisations or council projects that are really focused on the redevelopment of assets for the benefit of the community.
And clearly, delivery within the timescale is the most important criteria. And are we in a strict 12-month for this? Are we?
So Scottish Government funding always stipulates, and we spoke to Scottish Government officials last week, that the funding has to be committed by March 2026. But as a council, we can accrue that for 6 months. We would be looking at a spend by September 2026.
Okay, so these have to be projects that are deliverable in the next sort of 15 months, essentially. Yeah. Okay. No, any other questions? Any comments?
Thank you, Convener. Just to say, I'm happy with the report and happy to support it.
Okay. So I think no counter points. Okay, so we're happy to support this report, and thanks for your contribution, Audrey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item 6, climate change net zero biodiversity projects update and proposal, and over to Jo Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides an update on the projects under the climate change, net zero and biodiversity one-off funding, which was made available from uncommitted reserves in previous years. Delivery of the 10 projects had been programmed to fit alongside existing work priorities, and the 3 of the climate change net zero projects are now complete, which include LED lighting installation in 3 of the schools. We also funded a post through the Learning for Sustainability Coordinator through Education to support the development of that area of the curriculum, and that is something we're currently working with education colleagues to potentially put forward a further bid to extend that post. And funding was also provided to Vibrant Communities to support community groups with the Climate Resilient Grant Fund to secure infrastructure within their areas. An update on the remaining projects is provided in paragraphs 5.3 to 5.9 of the report, and we've categorised those via a red, amber, green rating just to indicate the deliverability of those. The biggest challenge really to progressing projects has been staff resource. However, all but 2 are now underway, and those 2 that aren't underway are subject to external input from organisations. An uncommitted balance of 133,000 remains from the funding, and the proposal as set out in this paper is to utilise 55,000 to fund the creation of 1 full-time equivalent post to deliver and manage the expectations around the expansion of the electric vehicle charging infrastructure across Angus, and also the rollout of the demand responsive transport as an alternative means of supporting public bus services in the more rural areas. Funding will support an initial 12-month period of the post, after which it would be self-financing from revenue from electric vehicle charging infrastructure, so in effect a spend to save post. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Beattie.
Yep, thank you, Convener. Joe, just this might be a little bit too operational, but on paragraph 5.5, the Angus mapping phase 1, are we talking a proper phase 1 habitat study? Are we looking any further, like getting phase 2 detailed studies on any particular areas?
Thank you, Councillor Beattie. So the habitat mapping is part of a broader area of work with NatureScot, and we're one of the pilot authorities working with them to develop out that habitat mapping. So that's been part of the delay, is just the progress made by NatureScot and AECOM in terms of progressing and actually catching up with us to enable that work to go ahead. So there is that kind of initial period. Once we've got kind of some of the outcomes and evaluation for that, the intention is to roll that out, and that actually supports some of the work as a requirement of National Planning Framework 4 through the Planning Act, through that habitat mapping work, and also to development of nature networks. So the two effectively go hand in hand, and the intention is that that will start and really enrich a lot of the data that we're able to develop for the nature networks.
Okay, any other questions? Any comments? Councillor Meehan.
Thank you, Convener. Again, just welcome this report and happy to support the recommendations.
Yeah, I say certainly for myself, I think the suggestion of using some of the money for a post to encourage demand responsive transport and the EV charging networks are really quite a clever thing to do. I think it was a fund set up for reducing carbon emissions and etc. So I think that's quite an intelligent thing to do. I think I'm very supportive of that. So yeah, I think we're happy to approve that paper, and thanks for your contribution, Jill. Thank you. Right, good. On to the Strategic Timber Transport Scheme 25 to 26, Glen Prosen, and over to Graham Daly.
Thank you, Convener. This report seeks authorisation to accept and utilise funding from the Strategic Timber Transport Scheme for carriageway improvements to support timber extraction from Glen Prosen. The report highlights the successful outcome of the Council's £150,000 funding bid, which will support a project to upgrade identified sections of the C27 and C28. The works will include the construction of HGV-sized passing places, structural strengthening, localised widening and drainage improvements along a 7.5 mile stretch of these routes within Glen Prosen. I'm joined today by Scott Dryden from the Roads and Transportation Service, who is available to assist with any queries members may have on the report.
Okay, thanks very much. Questions, Councillor Bell? This is your patch.
Yes, thank you very much. And it's a very familiar topic, Kerry Landward's East Community Council, Scott. So I'm going to just take the opportunity to chip in a couple of other things that I would like you to take forward with the Timber Transport Forum and FLS. So at this stage, there are a lot of anxieties about the way the timber lorries drive on these roads, and this paper will help to address some of the safety and road standards issues, which is fantastic because they get brought up a lot. But we know that not all the lorries use the recommended routes, and Tannadice is particularly challenged by this. It is a bit of a chicane going through the village, and the lorries have been using this at great risk, actually, which is going to damage the roads and houses and the bridge, particularly in the middle of the village. So I wondered if, as part of this conversation falling out of this paper, you could pick up with both FLS and the Timber Transport Forum those safety issues that have been raised by the communities in that community council area. It's very similar in Kerry Landward West as well, but it's great to see the additional infrastructure being put in, but there are bigger issues in that patch that I think need to be addressed, and I wondered if you would be willing to take these forward on the Community Council's behalf. Thanks.
Yes, thank you for your query there, Councillor Bell. Yes, that's not a problem at all. We are in regular dialogue with both these organisations, so we'll take that up and see what we can do. Not a problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions? Okay, any comments?
Thank you, Convener. Just to say, I welcome the outcome of the successful £150,000 bid. I'm sure that will go some way to help the issues that have been experienced in Glenprosen. I know there are issues in other places, but as far as the recommendations, certainly we would support the recommendations. Okay, thank you. Are we all agreed to support this one? Okay, thanks very much indeed. Thank you. And we'll move on to item 8, which is the active travel grant funding for 25-26, and back to Graham Daly.
Thank you, Convener. This report provides an update to the subcommittee on the delivery of the active travel projects funded in 2024-25. It also seeks approval for the proposed programme of projects to be funded in 2025-26 through a range of sources as detailed in the report. The report also outlines applications made to the Active Travel Infrastructure Fund Tier 2. Details of the 2024-25 programme delivery are set out in Appendix 1, while Appendix 2 provides a summary of the proposed programme for 2025-26. A substantial amount of work has been undertaken to progress the projects detailed in the report and prepare the funding applications, and I am joined by Paul Downey from our Roads and Transportation Service, who is available to assist with any questions members may have on the report.
Okay, any questions on this one? Councillor Meehan.
Thank you. Just to ask, the awards of grants, are these the amounts that were actually requested, or are they just given to us depending on, where in Angus?
In most cases, they are directly awarded, and we receive a letter advising us. So, for example, it used to be called the Cycling, Walking, Safer Routes CWSR. They changed the name to not any more catchy, it has to be said, the Active Travel Infrastructure Fund Tier 1. And we get this on an annual basis. And in the report we get, for comparison, we gave what we received last year, and there's a formula that the Transport Scotland uses to award to each of the 32 local authorities. There are exceptions, however. So, for example, the Active Travel Infrastructure Fund Tier 2 is for larger scale infrastructure projects, and that is on an application basis. And in one of the appendices details where we have submitted applications. Some of these follows where we've had funding for feasibility studies and initial design work, and it's almost to move these projects on. As I mentioned, there's a lot of work by Paul and others in the team to to progress these through feasibility, through design, and ultimately construction. So yeah, it is a little bit slightly complicated in terms of the the funding arena we work in, but it is detailed in the report.
Any other questions, Councillor B?
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Yeah, Graham, we've got a couple of things. I'll touch on probably the easiest one for you to deal with immediately. The Brecon to Montrose Active Travel Link, it's a potential project. Okay, had a lot of support in Brecon. It's all kind of gone quiet. Could you maybe sort of provide members with an update on where that's at? That'd be really useful. And secondly, the Dromachley Loan Phase 2 project, could you maybe give us a bit more information about that? Because that's a considerable chunk of money on a Tier 2 application.
I would invite my colleague Paul Downey just to provide updates on both of them. Of course, Dromachley is a follow-on from the significant works that have been done over the last 12 months or so. But yeah, if Paul could please come in and provide with updates on those two.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Thank you, Councillor Creety, for your question. So the Brecon to Montrose active travel link, that's still very much in the pipeline of projects. There's a possibility that sections of that can be delivered through the walking and cycling friendly roads, but it's not one that's going to be progressed this year. The Dramatically loan, which is the Tier 2 application, as Mr. Daly outlined, is the progression from the previous investments through the Cycling, Walk and Safer routes. Essentially, this phase 2 looks to complete where phase 1 finished off and provide a ramped access up to the surrounding network of paths that are seen as part of the nature trail there. And hopefully, from a funding perspective, we should hear from Transport Scotland before the end of the month, start of next month, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Well, first of all, just to let everyone know that one of the pipeline projects, the Airlie one, is coming off the pipeline because the hall has now closed down, sadly. But I've liaised with the hall committee on that, who'd put it forward. So that can come out, and thanks to Graham for responding so quickly to that. But also, I'm curious about the number of feasibility studies that we need and what the criteria are for initiating a feasibility study in the first place, which to me feels a bit like taking it away from the actual delivery of projects. And in terms of the Newtile to Dundee Green circular design, is that a partnership from the Dundee end as well? Are there active travel projects looking to join that up with us? Thank you.
I'll answer the first part, maybe invite Paul for the second part. In terms of the number of feasibility studies and where these come from, we do, I think we've done it almost every year, if not every year, we do a public consultation where we invite groups and individuals to bring forward where they feel there is a need, a benefit for active travel routes. And that's where a lot of these originate from when they come forward. It is just a natural progression. Is the first thing we need to do is that, well, is is it actually feasible given the the physical and just the land ownership constraints that are available. So I understand it could be frustrating in terms of the money that's potentially spent without putting a spade in the ground and the time these take, but it is an essential step to progress these. And I would say that there's some really good examples of where we've went through the whole process and we've ended up with a really good end product that is well used. In terms, I think the second part was specifically with the Newtile to the Green Circular and Dundee connection, and I'll let Paul come in maybe just for it with a little bit more detail on that.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Thank you, Councillor Bell too. If I could just add about the feasibility studies too, I think for funding bids direct to Transport Scotland, they are a key component of any applications for funding to progress to detailed design and construction. So it's very much that key part of that first part of the process. And regarding Newtile to the Green Circular, I've been in touch with counterparts at Dundee City Council to make them aware that there is going to be the potential for a cross-boundary link. But as far as the delivery and funding side of things, it will be coming from Angus Council.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Comment, if that's okay.
I've got one too. On you go for.
Just to say, I mean, clearly I welcome this report. It's always good news if you're being offered money and we're being asked to actually agree sums that are being given to us. So just to say that we welcome the report and certainly support it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. I think we all welcome the report, and as Councillor Meehan said, there's significant money that comes into Angus as a result of all this work. I have to be honest with you on some of the projects on page 39, which is, I think, is whatever it is, tier 2 or tier 3. So there's some way in the future, but and Councillor Beattie mentioned the Caledonian Railway, and there was a sort of asterisk, highly dependent on progress of Caledonian Railway extension. The issue for me seems to be, what is the route? What is the extension route? And somebody needs to identify that route, because if the route is to go to what was Dubton Station, you're going to have to tell people all these houses that are going to have to be knocked down, and businesses, etc. So that I think there needs to be some real serious look at a route, if there is a route. I've spent a lot of time looking at old railway lines. I know it's a sad thing, and looking at potential routes, and the previous railway routes I think are not viable. So I'm really concerned about that. The hillside to Craigawag to travel, I think I kicked this one off, I think, because I had a request from keen cyclists to look at this. When I now see that the construction costs are 1.5 to 2.5 million, I really don't. I find it very difficult to see us justifying that. I just don't think enough people would use it. We then see Angus 660 disused railway lines, construction cost of 45 million. That just seems like, well, that would be really nice, but I think that is just, I just wonder about, you know, as people have said, the feasibility studies, we all do them, or we get requested by constituents, we ask for them in good faith. But if I knew that the one in Hillside was going to be circa 2 million, I don't think I would have done that, because I would have struggled to justify that level of spend for that project. I just don't think there's enough people would be using it. So I've real concern about some of these ones further out. But yeah, on the whole, the projects that we're approving in the short term, yeah, welcome very much, and I approve the paper. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the final one, which is the Road Safety Improvement Fund, and back again to Mr. Daly.
Thank you, Convener. This report seeks approval to accept funding from Transport Scotland under the Road Safety Improvement Fund for 2025-26. The Road Safety Improvement Fund is a ring-fence capital grant established by Transport Scotland in 2023, with allocations provided annually. The expected allocation for 25-26 is £311,796. The report sets out how the funding will be used to try and maximise road safety in Angus. I am joined by Andrea Strachan from our Roads and Transportation Service, who is available to assist with any questions on this report.
Thank you. I welcome this report. Hi, Andrea. I just wondered what the life expectancy is of the higher traction road surface. Do they need to be repaired or replaced more frequently, or do they have a longer shelf life than the existing surface? Thanks.
One for you, Andrea, I think, or if Scott's possibly on the call too.
You're muted, Andrea.
Sorry, thank you. The life expectancy of the high friction road surface is similar to just our standard road surface that we put in. It's preferable to using that than like an overlay that we have put in, like in approaches to junctions or roundabouts, and it certainly it does last longer.
I guess a follow-up question, the locations you're picking are presumably because there's an accident record, or these are seen to be difficult junctions or difficult bends? Is that the logic behind it?
Yes, the logic behind it is we look for accident cluster sites, and we try and put measures in place to try and prevent those accidents from reoccurring.
Okay, that's grand. Excellent, thank you. Any other questions? Any comments? Okay, I think it maybe falls on me just to thank you for the report. Pardon? Yes, are we all agreed on that one? Yeah, and certainly thank you for the report, and I think we're all very supportive of it. It's road safety improvements are something that I think are very well worth doing. So thanks again, and I think that's us to end of the meeting. Okay, thanks for your attendance.
Can we stop the stream, please?